What distinguishes this, the digital capital?
Look, when we saw digital photos transform, a lot of people didn't get the fact that Kodak was going to get replaced by Instagram and Facebook, but they get digital photos. Digital capital is what happens when your long-term store of value goes from a building or goes from a portfolio of stocks to a digital asset like Bitcoin. Bitcoin represents the digital transformation of hundreds of trillions of dollars of capital in the world.
Right.
No one expected to see it, so they don't quite get what it's going to be, except for the fact it's worth all the money in the world.
So let's talk about that, because you do have you have a couple of slides showing assets around the world. First, okay, let's start with this from again geared toward Microsoft, but some critics would say when you talk about digital capital being economically and technically superior, no tax. I mean, that doesn't mean it can't be taxed in certain jurisdictions at some point. No torts. Legal issues are going to come up. No regulator. I mean, these are great points, but are they forever points?
The point is, I got $100 million in New York City and I buy a building. I got to worry about someone slipping and falling on the sidewalk and a property tax. But if I can snap my fingers and teleport the building to Zambia, Central Africa, or to Monaco, all of a sudden it's a teleportable building. And of course, if I don't have any tenants in the building, I don't got to worry about them defaulting.
Right,
so.
Right.
Digital capital is the ability to move the money at the speed of light anywhere on Earth and program it on a computer. There's a lot of people that are going to want that rather than having, pick a country in Africa where you want to invest your life savings in a building.
Right.
Forever.
Yeah, let's say Angola.
Right, and what happens if the government fails? You lose everything.
Exactly.
But if you could put the building in your pocket and go to the place where you like the government, maybe you get to keep your money.
Great. Let's talk about how it's going to grow. So in your presentation, you have this slide twice. The first one, right now, Bitcoin is $2 trillion. You're saying in 21 years, $280 trillion. How do we get there?
What I'm saying is the wealth in the entire world is growing because of innovation, because of technology, but also because of inflation. And people are thinking to sell their Central African real estate to buy Bitcoin, or sell their Siberian natural gas to buy Bitcoin, or sell their Argentine currency to buy Bitcoin. So as people migrate their capital into this global monetary asset, that asset class is going to grow faster than equity, faster than gold, faster than real estate.
But also, did I read somewhere that you're saying each Bitcoin would be worth the equivalent of $13 million?
Yeah, well, when you crank in the growth rate, which for me, the base case is 29% a year on average for 21 years, that gets you from where we are today to 13 million a coin in the year 2045.
All right, so we've talked about the financial parts of this. You and I have had great conversations in the past about the humanitarian part of this, right? And I want to talk about that. You just mentioned Africa, for instance. Bitcoin's philosophy and political promise. This is an article from 2022. It's not just a decentralized peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It's more, right? This is what this article is saying. And it's going to have an impact on economies, philosophy, politics, human rights, and society. That is huge to live up to.
Bitcoin is a protocol for prosperity. Fire, electricity, steel, English, mathematics. You would give them to the world. Bitcoin is an economic protocol. Once you master Bitcoin, you can figure out how to save your wealth, how to economically prosper. It works for a country, a company, a family, an individual. Nobody owns it. It's a utilitarian, egalitarian entitlement, just a good for the world. That's why I'm so enthusiastic about it.
And particularly underdeveloped nations, right? I mean, this is what we're really talking about, a way for them to catch up. I mean, right now, if you're an underdeveloped nation and you want to try to catch up, you're at the whims or the mercy of the IMF or the World Bank, who, quite frankly, they have rates sometimes that are that makes the mafia blush, right? I mean, to me, you're always going to be an underdeveloped nation if you have to go to the World Bank to borrow money.
If you're a type 1 diabetic, you can eat continuously and you'll starve to death because you cannot store organic energy. If you don't have a capital asset like Bitcoin, I can send billions or tens of billions of dollars to Africa. You can make billions. The money will just drain out of your capital structure because you're storing it in a currency which is collapsing faster than you can actually generate it.
Will large industrialized countries allow this to live up to its promise? It's one thing to say it's a $2 trillion asset. It's another to say, hey, eventually this will replace fiat currency, which a lot of folks believe it will.
I think you got to keep in mind money bifurcates into currency, the medium of exchange, of which the dollar is the world reserve currency, and capital, the store of value, of which right now real estate and equity portfolios are the world reserve capital. Bitcoin is emerging to compete with equity and real estate as world reserve capital. But those Africans, they can't buy real estate in the US. They can't buy equity in the New York Stock Exchange. It's global capital. And once you understand that, you realize that every nation that respects property rights is going to support Bitcoin.
Yeah.
If you go communist, full-on socialist, North Korea, Cuba, they're going to expropriate your property. But any place where people respect property rights and they give you a chance for capitalism and freedom, they're going to allow you to have Bitcoin. And the competitor really is, the Vanguard 500 is going to get demonetized a little bit. And then instead of buying a real estate portfolio and a third apartment, you buy some Bitcoin. And I don't think that's threatening to anybody.